This is a piece I am very, very proud to share with you. I have been going through a transformation drawing lately and sharing the drawings that I'm making. I did a piece a few weeks ago in which I really was frustrated with how much of a perfectionist I was, and so I wanted to do something that was completely different from anything I've done before, something that was abstract but also looked real. So instead of with the last piece that I spent days and days and days, hours and hours and hours working on a very, very anal retentive sketch, I did the best I could with this sketch to leave a lot open to interpretation. So as you can see, I was very inspired to just do a fuck ton of eyeballs and make it look very trippy. I find that it's a funny thing about my art is that my art is actually very, it definitely looks like a drug trip might look. And I only figured this out after I actually did, I took marijuana for the first time a few months ago in Mexico, and I was seeing stuff, and when I came out of it, I was like, oh my God, my artwork looks this way, and I'd never done drugs before, so that's not the point. I'm not purposely trying to do that, but I do find that interesting that I naturally kind of have that type of style where it looks very trippy, and it's interesting. So this thing about multiple eyes, I actually remember now that I think about it, when I was on my first trip, that I looked at Thoth and I couldn't stop laughing because his head looked like a planet with little trees and plants and flowers growing out and people walking around. I could not stop laughing. It was so funny. So I don't actually know why my art is trippy, but it's very colorful and bright and vivid. So that's interesting. And so with this piece, I really liked the experience of drawing something that I could imagine someone looking at it and going like, oh, I can see that as something that could be real, but at the same time being something that was not real and could not be real at the same time. The idea of having a hand in multiple positions, like it's almost like it's moving, the hand is moving, and that the eyes are moving and the face is moving. And also I had these new acrylic paints. I recently got a bunch of new colors, which I was so excited to use, but I wanted to make a piece to use them with and not just fill a whole page with acrylic paint, which was what I was wanting to do. So use that as well, have acrylic paint and use all different techniques. But see how the eye is just a sketch of an eye. It's not like this fully sketched eye with all the shadowing in there. So it just left me a lot of space to experiment with the colors I was using and for the colors to look a lot more vibrant, which is the way I actually really like to make art. So I every piece that I make, I learn something, which is just, I think that's just how it works being an artist, and being a self-taught artist especially, is that you teach yourself with every piece that you make how to draw. And I find that even when I work on a piece that I'm frustrated with, which was the last piece that I made, that I learned a lot. I learned about what I don't want to do when I draw something. I don't want to be so specific about filling in a sketch with so much detail so that the pencil doesn't allow for the vibrancy of the colors to come out. but I'm learning how do I sketch in a way that gives me freedom. It gives me a clear outline of what I'm drawing, but then once I get into the freedom of the painting and coloring process, then I have a lot of freedom to add that vibrancy to my piece, which is what I really enjoy doing. That's the thing I most enjoy doing. And when a piece is heavily sketched and the pencil mark is so heavy, it just doesn't allow me to add that lovely, bright, shiny color that I love so much. So, yeah, this piece was really fun to create, and I loved doing the abstract, surreal aspect of it in addition to the realistic aspect of it. I think my art will always have that. I think maybe the next piece that I make, I want to try and make it as hyper-realistic as I can. And then I started using watercolor as well. So I was using acrylic paint, watercolor paint, gel pens, and brush pens. And it's fun to use multiple creative painting and coloring tools to get the kind of look that I'm aiming for. And again, when I do pieces like this, I kind of have this vague idea of what I want to create and what I want to see, but I don't know how it's going to turn out until I actually do it. And it always comes out differently than how I imagined it would. But when I'm in the painting process, the thing I love so much about painting and drawing is that I really am not in the world anymore. I'm so focused on creating and the image I see in my head, and the harder I work on it, the longer I work on it, the more I can see that image starting to come to life. So it really does feel like it's that I'm creating something that there was nothing there on the page initially, and then when I finish the piece there is. And again, the finished piece is really not the goal, but I definitely feel really good when I finish a piece and I feel good about it, because in the end that's all that matters. So I got the whole face done, and I was really, really happy with how it turned out. Basically, I'm trying to teach myself how to draw the way that I want to draw, the way that I've always envisioned myself being able to draw. I'm very inspired by people like Salvador Dali, and there is this Polish artist who does these incredibly abstract horror paintings, but they're hyper realistic. They look like it almost looks like you're looking into somebody's dream. It looks extremely real, but completely non-real. Like you would never see anything like that in real life. So I can't remember his name, and I would butcher it if I said it. It's just incredibly hyper-realistic, almost photorealistic dream horror paintings. And then, of course, Salvador Dali, who does these incredibly abstract, dreamy paintings. So that is my vision for my art, is to be able to paint my dreams, to be able to draw things that I see in my head. And it's much, much more difficult than it seems. I never actually understood what drawing from imagination even meant. When I was younger, I couldn't imagine not drawing something that I couldn't see directly in front of me with my eyes. And with this piece, of course, I had a lot of different references. I took pictures of my hands. I had pictures of different eyes. I used my face as the basis for that. for the face and different positions of my hands for hand references. So I had references, but I mixed them all together and put them all in different orders, which is kind of what you have to do. But again, it's this thing that you see these amazing artists like Salvador Dali, and you just wonder, how the hell did they do that? How did they make something that isn't real look completely real? So with this one, I just said, I'm really liking drawing the eyes, so let me draw some hyper-realistic eyes if I can. And I had a really good reference for this one. And I just set to work making a fucking eyeball. And this is another thing that I'm learning how to do. I just sketched it very basically, and then I went in with my colors and started to actually paint in the way the eye actually looks. Whereas before I was sketching it with very dark pencil, to the point that I couldn't actually add any color because I had painted myself into a corner basically, or drawn myself into a corner. So this one, I was really surprised how it turned out. It ends up looking very realistic, and I'm just using the colors and I'm being brave with it. It really has taken me a lifetime to just be brave with using colors, because once there's a feeling that once you put a color down, that's it. You really can't go back. Of course, that's not true, but with pencil, you can always erase things, and I do realize that I am quite a perfectionist with drawing, so I tend to be anxious when I put down colors because I feel like I'm making a final choice, and I tend not to trust myself so much about. But if I do trust myself and I just keep at it and keep going with it, then I find that and like I said, I really do feel like every time I draw, every time I paint, or that I'm basically trying to prove to myself that I can do it. Because each time I draw something, I never know how it's going to turn out. And this eye in particular, I was really surprised by how realistic it looks, and how it's that kind of thing of making something that's really, really colorful and bright and unnatural. That's not a normal eye. You wouldn't see an eye like that in day-to-day life, but you can still get a sense that it is an eye. So that this is something that I've just been working my whole life at, is that I really want to be able to draw things that are not real, but if you saw them, you could be like, oh, that's an eye, or that's a city, or that's a building, or that's a creature, and their face looks like this, and that it can be recognized as something real. It's like in writing, when you write fantasy stories, you need to have a story where all of the fantasy aspects, all the magic aspects are realistic enough where you can believe them. So that's true with art too, with fantasy, fantastical, abstract art. The kind of art that I really want to make is the ability for someone to look at it and go, oh, that looks realistic, that looks believable, but at the same time, it's not real, and it's not anything you would see in regular life. And I really never could understand this. It's taken me 35 years to understand that, or really figure out, and I'm still learning every day. I'm not at the skill level I want to be at, and I don't know if I ever will be, but I definitely see how I have improved, and rewatching these and going through and making little time lapses and seeing my progress. I can say that, I have learned stuff and I do know how to draw. It was getting into this place where I was like, oh wow, it looks really realistic. Like I said, I never know, just don't know. When you, as with life, you just never know how it's going to turn out. And you have to be brave and keep going. And peace is pieces can feel very messy, they can get into spaces where they feel very ugly, but just like, oh, okay, I'm not going to be able to get this piece to work. And you just have to keep plodding away. You have to keep trying, keep working at it, be diligent and patient with yourself, and trust yourself. And it will work out. So I kept drawing eyes, and this eye was used as a reference that I took a photo of my own eyes and used that as a reference. So this one, I wanted the eye to be looking at this face with all the eyes looking around. And I'm creating a very basic sketch. I'm working very diligently, actually, to not just try and finish the sketch and make it look like a very finished sketch. I'm trying to be light with it, just create the lines that I need to then fill in with color. And it's just a process of learning how to do this. I want to give myself space to have, to make different choices. But I also want the sketch to look as good as I can, as it can look. It's just a skill set that I'm learning. Is that how far into the sketch do I need to go before I feel comfortable to start coloring it? But having references is very helpful. I have worked on pieces in which I don't have a reference, where I just draw completely strange alien beings, and I'll share some of those in the future, especially pieces I've made with Procreate. There's a big difference between drawing digitally and drawing traditionally, and I try to find a balance. These days I'm drawing traditionally a lot, and I spent a long time, a few years actually, not drawing traditionally and drawing with Procreate. And I find that they go both ways. That when I'm working on digital drawing, that I find I improve with traditional drawing. I just get braver and I'm less afraid, because digital drawing gives you the freedom to delete things, get rid of things that you don't like. Traditional drawing can be tricky because once you put, there is more of a permanence to traditional drawing. But the thing I really enjoy about traditional drawing is that it is me creating it, that it is very much organically my hand and my expression. And I really do enjoy doing, and I really do enjoy doing abstract pieces with traditional art. And I am thinking a lot these days about how I would like to create canvas pieces. Like this piece in particular, I can see it being on a canvas. And that's something I've kind of told myself over the years, that, oh no, I can't create canvas pieces because I'm traveling. And when I'm traveling, there's no way that I can, I've just been telling myself this. But I can, these days I'm thinking about it, and I think I would really like to do that. But here I am being more exploratory with the colors. I'm inspired by the eye I made above this one, and adding colors as I imagine them to be. And I'm pretty surprised how this one turns out. Drawing is one of the most enjoyable things that I do in my life, and I love the challenge of it. That's the biggest aspect of drawing that I really find. It's just so satisfying to me to watch it come into, like, fall into place, drawing, because then it's a challenge, and each time I start a new piece, I just don't. It's not that I don't have faith in myself. I definitely believe in myself, and I know that I can draw, but there's always doubt and a bit of fear that it's not going to work out and it's not going to look good. And I wouldn't say I'm hypercritical of my art process. I'm not sitting there like scared shitless that it's not going to turn out. I do have faith in myself, as with all the art all the things that I do creatively, but it is challenging. So this last eye, I really enjoyed. I had a cool reference. I had been working on these kind of sketches for a while, so I was having more confidence. That's what happens every time I draw, is that the longer I do it, the more confidence, the more relaxed, the more at peace I am with the process. So with this one, I am frustrated with this paper. It is Bristol paper, which I love. I love Bristol paper. But it doesn't really take the water very well, and I can get frustrated with how the paper starts to, it's just a little bit, it doesn't take in the water and the color very well. But once it dries, I have to trust that once it dries and that it will set in and start looking the way I envision it to look. But every single piece that I make, every little sketch that I do, there's always kind of like an ugly phase. This is, for me, kind of the ugly phase. I'm not really sure if it's going to work out. But again, it's just that thing of continuing to move forward with it, keep going, and don't give up on it, don't give up on myself. And I'm learning. I think I have learned over the years that if I trust my eye, because I am looking at a reference, so I do have something that's helping me the creation of this eye. So I have learned over the years that if I just trust my eye and I trust what I'm looking at in front of me, that I can execute it if I just keep going. But this one actually ended up being my favorite of all the eyeballs that I made for this piece. But it's a process of also starting really light with the colors. Start with a very light sketch, as light as I can, which I'm learning how to do, and then starting with light colors. These I'm using acrylic paint and a lot of water, and then adding darker colors and darker colors and darker colors, and it's starting to come into shape. And once I get that little white in the eyeball, then I start to see, oh look, it actually looks like something recognizable as an eye. There we go. That's starting to look even more real. But that's thrilling. That's just a thrilling, really thrilling process for me, is seeing something in front of me and then executing it to look real. And there we go. I didn't document the process of getting all that shiny shit in there, but that was really fun. Really, really fun. And I can't believe how, to say it very humbly, I'm really surprised how good it looks. And I tend to surprise myself with my skill, because I'm the one inside myself looking out and looking at this process. I'm doing it day after day after day, so I don't see, I do see day by day how I've improved, but at the same time, I don't, because I'm inside myself doing it every day. But, when I'm able to execute pieces like this, and it all comes together at the end of the day, after working on it for so long, I'm very proud of myself. These eyes, that one is so, I love this eye. It looks so real. And I was finally able to get into the acrylic painting, and Thoth suggested that I leave some white space available, which is difficult for me. I tend to like filling the entire page with color. For a minute I was thinking maybe I'd just leave that whole left section of the page and the top section white, but I did make this piece with the intention of wanting to use these new acrylic paints that I have, and I worked very diligently for a really long time making a sketch and a drawing that I was proud of in which to then use these acrylic paints. I can't believe how disciplined I am. I really have become so disciplined. I just love working hard on things. It makes me so happy because at the end of the day, there it is. I just have this piece that I've made and I can feel good about it and see how much I've improved as an artist. And I learn so much through this process. It's my own personal adventure that I'm having on the page, with the paints, with the colors, with my imagination, with myself. And really I'm so pleased. Whew, I really like that one. That eye is just so cool. Really proud of this one. Thank you so much for watching.